This is Colin Dixon with nScreen Media, and I'm speaking with Blair Harrison, who is CEO of Frequency. Blair, welcome.
Thank you very much. Nice to see you, Colin.
And John Cohen, who is SVP of Business Development at Frequency. John, welcome.
Thanks for having us, Colin.
Yeah, John's in a little bit of a noisy environment, but we can still hear him pretty clearly, so that should be just fine. I really wanted to talk to Frequency because they are at ground central in the evolution of the fast linear marketplace. But maybe I'm getting a little ahead of myself. So Blair, why don't you give us a quick intro to Frequency?
Okay. So we've been around since 2010, but since about 2018, we've been exclusively in the fast business. And Frequency is a platform for the creation and distribution of linear fast channels. We do that at a pretty considerable scale at this point. We've got hundreds and hundreds of channels. We're reaching well over 100 different distribution points. And really, as you said, right in the thick of the growth and evolution of this probably fastest growing part of the video ecosystem globally.
Right. Very much so. So, John, you got anything to add to that? Where you're in the business development department. I suspect that business is very good and scale is a challenge.
Well, scale is always a challenge, but when you build really great software and you have a group of people that have stayed together from the beginning of the research and development all the way through to the execution, it makes it enjoyable and easier. It's very interesting right now because you have distribution platforms like Samsung TV Plus and others that are creating their own channels. So it's not just the content owners that are creating their own branded channels. You have distributors also in the space creating their own variants of channels using VOD that they have licensed. So the market's growing, it's evolving, and for Frequency, there's a eclectic group of buyers that need our services for a plethora of things.
Right. So Blair, you're working with a lot of content providers in helping them create their channels. What would you say the core value proposition that you can provide to them when they work with you?
We spend an enormous amount of time building tools that are as easy to use as the tools that you use in your everyday life. Without naming any of our competitors who don't necessarily have a similar view, when you do something that's going to have disruptive economics, which is what Frequency represents, right? You can create a channel that, if we're doing our job right, is indistinguishable from the best channels on TV, but you're doing it at some small fraction of the cost. So that's great for everyone. But what also happens is you sort of you open the market up to people who previously wouldn't have got into this business. And so you've got lots of smaller companies, digital studios and so forth that can't afford to have half a dozen people with different disciplines all running one channel. So the tools have got to be dead simple to use. And I feel like we've achieved that better than pretty much any of our competitors. They've got to look great. So things that we take for granted on traditional TV, which haven't existed in most fast channels and platforms for some time, like motion graphics, elements that give the channel those kind of accoutrements that really want to, keep you watching and make it look professional. I think we do that better than anyone else. We handle live exceptionally well. Already this year, we've run over 4,000 live soccer matches for one of our big customers, and we're taking those and dynamically provisioning them into fast channels, which is pretty innovative and unique for Frequency. And we have an analytics capability that brings together and presents in one unified interface experience consumption and related data, performance data from your whole distribution footprint. And that's part of this service that we call Frequency Connect. And at the risk of listing too many ways that we differentiate, Connect is all about customers with lots of channels going to lots of distributors, having a large and complex distribution footprint, and managing that complexity, which is increasingly enormous, right? You've got half a dozen channels going out to a dozen different places. That's a lot of things to manage. And we have some incredibly simple to use visual tools to enable you to manage your entire fast business, because we think more about Frequency Studio as a platform for running your fast business than just for running a fast or a few fast channels. And I think that's another important differentiation.
Right. Very good. So John, give us a sense for who you're working with, who some of your content clients are, and who you're distributing to.
I'll start with the distribution part first. We distribute to a lot of places. As Blair said, it's a mixture between owned and operated platforms and then third parties. To highlight a few without excluding any, TV Plus, Amazon Prime Video, Revry, the Roku channel, TV, Sling TV, Tubi TV, Local Now. There's several third party, anywhere where there's any meaningful scale with fast Vizio televisions, for example. Frequency is integrated, and getting integration and support on those platforms isn't just an open network where everybody can plug in. You have to have the streams authenticated. You have to have metadata for the EPG. You have to have the right ad logic. So there's a lot of different steps in that process, and we're very proud to have such strong distribution support. On the content provider side, there are hundreds and hundreds of channels, but a few that are interesting are Televisa, Univision. We work with Allen Media and the Weather Group. We work with America's Funniest Videos. We work with Revry and Scripps and Hearst, all of their local channels. And there are many other new content providers that I can't necessarily announce on this interview, but are global, large, and very meaningful, and have chosen Frequency for their core services.
Yeah. One of the things that, Blair, you didn't mention in your easy to use features is you've got a very simple business model, right?
Yeah. We when we entered the space, there were incumbents, and it was, one's always got to find ways to differentiate. And we thought that we were walking into a space with an economic model that had been unchallenged for a while. And so we went out of our way to simplify it. And basically, if you run a channel on Frequency, you pay us to run the channel. And then, with the exceptions of some transport related costs, you don't pay us if you want to send that channel to 100 different distributors and apps and third-party services, or to one. So it's a fixed recurring fee on a per channel basis. Pretty much everything after that is so either included or it's smaller and scales as a function of consumption. So we're assuming you've got a consumption model that works, which in general one does, right? People are watching your channels and you're making money from advertising. The only sort of fixed cost is actually running the channel. Right.
So that's nice and simple. And sounds like it scales extremely well. Sounds like you've got great coverage. So folks should be able to reach pretty much every one of the endpoints, every one of the major fast linear endpoints that there are out there. So that sounds like a really good deal for them. Gentlemen, this has been awesome. Thank you very much for spending time with us and telling us what you think about the market, and also telling us more about Frequency. Blair, thank you very much.
Thank you, Colin. Nice to see you again, and thanks for taking time to do this.
No problem. And John, good to see you as well.
You too. Thank you, Nate.
Thank you.
Take care. Bye.
This has been Colin Dixon with nScreenMedia.